Hey guys, so I thought today would be a great opportunity because the weather is beautiful out here to do what I'm going to call an initial quality review on this truck. The reason I'm going to call it that is because I've only had this truck for 7 months, but I've got about 11,000 miles on it. And in that 11,000 miles, I've done everything that you can do with this truck. I've hauled maximum payload, we've towed several different trailers and over 6,000 pounds of weight with it. It's been off-road, it's been on family trips. Just about everything you can use a truck for, this Jeep Gladiator has done. So today we're going to talk about a few different things. The main topic though is going to be, is this truck worth it? So let's get right to it. So the number one question that I hear as a Gladiator owner or lessee is, why would you get this truck? I mean, let's face it, this thing is really expensive, and for the money you could get any other pickup truck on the market, full size or mid-size. Any other truck on the market you can get at or below the price of one of these. So why wouldn't you? Well, I guess my response to that would be simply that there's nothing else that you can compare to this. I mean, what other truck allows you to take the doors off, take the top off? You know, what other truck has solid axles front and rear in the mid-size class? I don't know of any. I mean, this truck has the payload to get the job done. It has an awesome class-leading gasoline towing capacity. It's also got the fun factor because it's still a Jeep. It has the best resale value. You know, it's debatable whether or not the Tacoma has better resale value, but from what I've seen here in my local area, these actually hold a little bit more value. So financially, if you look at the value that this thing holds, the fun factor, which you can't get this level of fun in any other truck, combined with the fact that it can do actual truck work, the value is actually there. And I realize the price tag is way up on these things, but like I just said, there's so much to this truck that people don't understand. You know, people who aren't really Jeep purists, they don't really understand this truck. And so my response would be, why wouldn't you get something else? Well, because this truck is in a class of its own and there's nothing else that compares. Okay, so 11,000 miles using the truck as a truck. I know it's still early, but that's why I'm calling it an initial quality review. So how has this truck been through the first 11,000 miles? The answer is it's been flawless. So let's start off by talking about the powertrain. So obviously these trucks have the 3.6 liter V6, the Pentastar engine that FCA uses in just about everything they make, from muscle cars to full-size trucks to SUVs, minivans, you name it. They use this engine in just about everything across the board, and it is a fantastic engine. I've had 4 of these engines, one in a Challenger, one in a JK Wrangler, a JL Wrangler, and now the JT Gladiator, and every one of them have been rock solid, no repairs, no breakdowns, no time in the shop. They're just awesome engines, very reliable, very easy to service and work on at home. You can do an oil and filter change in literally 5 minutes in your driveway on this truck. I just love this engine. Now, granted, it is a little bit low on torque. You know, 260 pound-feet is nothing to write home about, but they changed up the cam profile and some other things on this version of the engine compared to the original Pentastar engine. And so they moved the torque that you do have down a little lower in the curve, and I find that it actually does a really good job in this truck. Combined with the 8-speed automatic transmission, it's really an awesome combo. It's so much better than the outgoing JK. It just blew me away how much better this is. I mean, I've got 35-inch tires on here, as you can see, with stock gearing and everything, and it handles them fine. Even with the aftermarket bumper and the winch and the lift and the 35s, I'm still averaging a hand calculated 16 miles per gallon, which, 16 miles per gallon isn't, this awesome number, but for what it is, it's pretty good. 16 is still better than my stock F-150 used to get. So I'm pretty happy with the engine, the transmission. I'm not real happy with the programming that they put in the transmission. FCA has a way of taking world-class ZF transmissions and writing their own software for them and screwing them up. So I'm not completely happy with the way that it shifts sometimes. There are times when it's just kind of laggy, and there are other times when it hangs up in a gear when you feel like it ought to downshift or upshift. So, that's stuff that could be rectified through the aftermarket if it really bothered you enough. But the hardware is awesome. The engine, the transmission, the axles, the driveline in this truck has just been flawless. It's done everything I've needed it to do. Zero problems, zero leaks. I mean, it's just a great truck for a truck. I mean, just look how heavy duty all this stuff is. I mean, maybe the camera doesn't do it justice, but if you were here and you saw this in person, I mean, it's just unbelievable how heavy duty they made this. Hey there, kitty, where'd you come from? So anyway, I mean, the build quality, the strength that they put into the chassis and the frame and the suspension and everything and the brakes. I mean, this is basically a full-size truck in a small package. It really is. Now here's the enclosed trailer that we pull sometimes. We've also got a big pontoon boat. You can see a utility trailer there. I've also rented a car hauler from U-Haul to put a car on and haul it. We went, I think it was a 160-mile trip pulling a car on a car hauler. Everything I've pulled with this truck so far, it's done a phenomenal job. It gets really respectable fuel economy. It'll hold speed. I mean, I can set it to 55 with the cruise control on, and even going up a 5% grade, it would hold speed. Now, granted, it would downshift. Sometimes it would downshift all the way to 4th gear, but it would do what it needed to do to hold the speed, and it had no trouble maintaining speed. So towing is great. I'm sure you saw the video a week or two ago where we hauled 20 sandbags plus a pallet. We were at maximum payload on this truck when you consider my weight plus all the aftermarket stuff I've put on here. We had the truck completely legally maxed out, and it did a wonderful job. Did just as well and admirable as any other full-size truck I've ever had before. So again, as a truck, this thing has been fantastic. There are so many people who see me at the gas station and they're like, oh, that's cute. It's a Jeep with a bed on it. Well, yeah, but it's more than that. And that's why I say people don't understand this vehicle. This thing was purpose built to be a truck. If you do some research on it and, look at the interviews where they talk to the FCA engineers, when they were building this thing, you look at how they put the, largest brakes in the class on here, the stiffest frame in the midsize class, all the things they did when they engineered this truck, it really shows that they wanted to build a truck, and I think they succeeded. So I'm completely happy with it as far as the powertrain and the suspension and its ability to do the work that I need it to do. I have no complaints at all. So let's move into the interior. And of course I've got a bunch of trash in here right now that I need to clean out, but the interior on these obviously mimics what you see in the JL Wrangler. I still think personally that this dash design and layout is the best probably of any pickup truck on the market right now, save for maybe the Ram 1500. That new 2020 Ram 1500 is beautiful. I mean, they did a great job on that truck. But I would say this one is definitely at the very top of the list. Very modern looking, everything's laid out the way it's supposed to be. I just really love it. It's a design that I don't see myself getting tired of, I like how the Sport has the gray dash overlay here instead of the red. But I mean, everything in here has been functioning really well and it's easy to get to. The only thing I would change is where they put the auxiliary switches, because most of the time guys are using these to power lights and you have to reach around the shifter and everything to get to it. It's just kind of a pain. So I'd like to see them move this somewhere else, but I realize that in a truck like this, where you don't have a whole lot of dash space to begin with, it's kind of hard to find places to put things. So I guess I understand why they did what they did, but that's a minor gripe. You know, the seat fabric is holding up really well. These have been wet a few times, and we've had dogs in here and things, and holding up really well. No complaints at all where I slide in and out on that seat cushion on the driver's side every day, multiple times a day. It's holding up great. That leather steering wheel is awesome. Of course, this has the cold weather package, so the heated steering wheel on a cold winter day, man, that heated steering wheel is one of those things that once you have it, you'll never want to live without it. So here's where it gets really interesting. This truck has more leg room and head room in the second row than any truck in this segment. I mean, there's just a ton of room in here. Nobody's going to feel tight or cramped if they're sitting back here. I'm a pretty tall guy, and I can even ride back there. So the weird thing about this cab is that in some ways you have more room and more space than any other truck in the segment, but in other ways you don't. For example, in the driver's seat up here, and you've probably seen a lot of threads on the forums about this, the headroom could be quite a bit better, because if you're over 6 feet tall, your head gets awfully close to that sport bar up there. In fact, it's kind of funny because this morning I filled this thing up with gas, and as I was getting back in, I hit my head on the sport bar up there, and I just about knocked myself out cold right there at the gas station. It was embarrassing, and it hurt like crazy. I've had a headache all day long, but you know, the headroom is kind of miserable over here, and they shaved nearly 2 inches of hip room out of this thing. Now the JK was already pretty narrow. Why in the world would they take almost 2 more full inches out of the hip room? I have no idea. So it's just a really weird dichotomy, because in some ways this thing needs more interior space, and in other ways it's already got more interior space than lots of the trucks in the segment. You know, so it's just kind of strange. But as far as fit and finish and materials, I mean, everything's holding up great. And like I said, we've had this thing on the trails, we've had it down at the river. We haven't camped out of it yet, but we're going to be camping out of it very soon. Had dogs back here, just all kinds of things, and everything is holding up great. No complaints at all about the fit and finish, the materials they used, the way everything functions. It's just pretty awesome. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, there is one other complaint that I do have, and that is that the trailer brake controller is not available. Now, since the beginning, okay, for 8 or 9 months now, since the very beginning when they launched this truck, even up until today, they are showing on the Jeep website that you can get a factory trailer brake controller. I mean, you can look it up on the Jeep site right now. They show pictures of it and everything, but you can't get it. The dealerships don't know anything about it. Nobody can find a part number for this supposed, you know, option. It's just not available. You ask Jeep customer care, they have no idea about it. You know, this is a truck that they highly touted as having the best gasoline towing capacity in the segment, and yet they don't offer a factory trailer brake controller, which is just really, really frustrating to me, especially considering that they keep advertising it. So Jeep, if you're listening, you guys need to get with it. We got to have this thing to stay legal when we're towing out on the roads. Now, all of these Gladiators are pre-wired under the dash, so you can put an aftermarket trailer brake controller in here right now. If you don't mind doing that and going aftermarket, you can do that right now, and that's what a lot of guys are doing. But you know, if you're going to advertise a factory option, which lots of times the factory options do integrate better with the truck, then you should get it ready and, you know, offer it for sale. So now let's chat briefly about the body on this truck. You can see the windshield is still the original windshield, and I have no rock chips, no cracks, no splits whatsoever. The reason I bring this up is because if you read the forums and browse the internet, people make it sound like that these windshields are made out of plastic. You know, they say they go through these things like candy. I don't understand it, because I've never had one that has given me any trouble at all. I mean, I've had 4 Wranglers and now a Gladiator, put tens and tens of thousands of miles on these things. You guys know, if you've been watching the videos for a while, that I live in the rural area of Kentucky where we have gravel roads, miles of gravel roads. I've got a rock quarry that's like 1.5 miles from my house, so there's dump trucks on the road all the time. I've never had one of these windshields give me any trouble. So I'm not saying that those guys are lying, but I just don't understand how they're breaking windshields all the time. It just doesn't make any sense to me, but the windshield's been fine. The body's been fine. One thing I have noticed is that the bed sides are just a little bit on the thin side. I don't know if the camera will pick this up. Let's see if I can get it to. Nah, I don't think it's going to. There's a very small dent here I was going to try and show you. And that happened on 4th of July night. We were using a small board out in the grass to shoot our fireworks off of. My son picked it up to put it in the back of the truck for me, and I saw it happen. He just barely hit this because he didn't lift it up high enough to get it over the bed rail. So he tapped the side of the truck with it, and it left a dent. And the dent is actually visible most of the time if you hit the right angle. So the bed sides are just a little bit on the thin side. But you know, a lot of trucks are that way these days because they're trying to keep them as lightweight as they can for fuel economy purposes. But everything else has been working out great. The doors, you know, they have that nice quality feel when you shut them. They seal up pretty well. Everything's been working good. We took the doors and top off back in the summertime and drove around like that for a few weeks, which is awesome. And again, it's something you can't find anywhere else in the class. And you know, as far as the chassis and the body and everything, it's all working out great. You know, I think the paint on these trucks is pretty high quality paint. I left this thing dirty on purpose for this video so that you could see that I do use this thing, and it stays dirty quite a bit out here. But the paint is it's really nice. You don't see a lot of orange peel in it. When I do wash this truck, you know, I hand wash it. I try not to take it to the auto wash all the time. So I like come out here and I'll hand wash it, and then I'll dry it off with a microfiber cloth. It shines up and looks beautiful. You know, despite the fact that we live out here in the dirt and mud and gravel, it does clean up real nice, and I'm pretty happy with the paint job. And it seems like it's a higher quality finish. You know, I had a Nissan truck once that just had a really crappy paint job. Most of the Nissan vehicles have really, really thin paint. I think that's one way they try to save money to keep the prices down. This is not that way. This has a really quality finish on it. So again, I'm pretty happy with it, and I don't have any complaints there. Now, if I have any complaints about the exterior of the vehicle, one of them would be, probably the biggest one, is the mirrors. These mirrors are absolutely horrible. There's some mud on that one, but the way that they're shaped and their small stature for a pickup truck, they're absolutely terrible. And particularly on the driver's side, where if you're a fairly tall guy like me, you can't even see the other lane out of this thing. You know, when I'm sitting up in there, this mirror, I guess they designed this for the Wrangler because they wanted it to be kind of tucked into the body for off-road use. But for the truck version, for the Gladiator, they should have developed a better, more proper towing truck mirror that gave you more range of, you know, basically you just can't get enough adjustment out of the glass. And also the size makes it tough to see around a trailer, whereas if you had a rectangular shaped mirror like this, like most trucks have, with some real estate out here, it would make it a whole lot easier to see around a trailer like this. So that's probably my biggest complaint, is the horrible, horrible mirrors that they put on this truck. Eventually, I'm hoping that they'll come out with a new style. You know, maybe in the 2nd or 3rd model year of this truck, they'll offer some proper towing mirrors. And then I'm thinking it'll be easy to retrofit because these just bolt on from the inside. So it should be easy to swap them out. But yeah, that's probably my biggest complaint about the exterior. For a Jeep, you know, I mean, it's probably one of the nicer Jeeps that I've ever had. And just the way, you know, like the design is just really awesome. Let me get over here and try to get out of this sun glare. But see the design of the bumper? I just think I know it's a little thing, but I just think they did a great job on that. That's a really cool looking rear bumper. I like the little cutouts. I like the tow hook integration over there that doesn't interfere with your receiver hitch. I like the way they did the wiring connectors right there that are easy to get to. You got the 4-pin and the 7-pin there. All Gladiators have the wiring pre-installed, which makes it super easy. If you get one that doesn't have a tow package, all you get is the bumper mount for a ball, and you can just take that off and put the, you know, receiver hitch on, and you're ready to go because the wiring's already there. You know, it's the little things that they thought of that really make this truck nice. I think they did a good job on the design of the hardtop. I'm glad that they integrated a sliding window in there. I think that it's a great idea the way they did these rear doors. Now, everybody has different opinions on this. Some people say it's ugly and it looks stupid and they should have changed it so you don't have so much sheet metal back here. But there's an obvious reason why they did this, and it's so that these are interchangeable with the Wrangler, which means that in the future, if you need a door, you need parts for the door, it's going to be a lot easier and a lot less expensive to find what you need because it shares everything with the Wrangler, and there's like a million Wranglers on the road, right? So it's just one of those smart things they did. No, maybe it doesn't look the best, but it's smart. And that's the whole thing with a Jeep, is that it's meant to be simple and smart. It's not supposed to be the most technologically advanced thing on the road, right? It's supposed to be smart and it's supposed to get the job done. So I just really appreciate some of those things. If they would fix the mirrors, I would almost say it's a perfect design. Almost, if they would just fix those crazy mirrors. Something that kind of is annoying is that when you open the tailgate, the bed light doesn't come on. Now it does come on if you open a door, which is stupid, but if you open the tailgate, it doesn't come on. Come on, Jeep, who engineered that? You've already got wiring back here for locks and lights and cameras, so obviously it's easy to make this come on with the tailgate. Why didn't you do it? Come on, guys. If I could do it all over again, would I lease another one of these trucks? Yeah, I would. I love this thing. You know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens if that diesel engine is ever offered. I think they finally are starting to hit the dealership lots now in the Wrangler. So maybe over the next 6 to 9 months, we'll see the diesel show up in this truck. I think the Eco Diesel engine is going to be interesting because on one hand, it's going to give you obviously the torque that everybody wants. But on the other hand, how are they going to handle the payload numbers with that diesel? The diesel's 400 pounds heavier, which is going to subtract from your payload unless they find some way to raise the gross vehicle weight rating. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, if they do the diesel on the truck, how are they going to do the diesel? Is it going to be one of those things that's real popular? Or is it going to hurt the specs on the truck to the point that it doesn't make it worth it as a truck anymore? You know what I mean? So that's going to be interesting. But in this configuration right here with the Pentastar engine and the automatic transmission, the 410 gearing, it's just, I'm really happy with it. I would do this all over again because I just really enjoy every time I get in this truck. I enjoy it. Every time I hit the start button, I have a blast in this thing. The attention that it gets has been kind of overwhelming. Sometimes it gets a little bit annoying because you can't go anywhere in this truck without people wanting to stop you, talk to you about it, ask questions about it. But I guess that's part of it. And, you know, we've all had a blast with it. And I would definitely do this all over again. I might do a different color. I don't know. I love the red, but I might have done a different color. But when I ordered this one, there was only a few colors that were available, and this was the only color that kind of popped a little bit, you know? So yeah, I'm happy with it 100%, blessed to have it, and can't wait to get even more miles on it so I can update you on how it does as the years pass. So, you know, just to summarize, I haven't had any trouble at all with this truck. The four-wheel drive system works awesome, even with that front axle disconnect that I was kind of worried about at first. It hasn't been a problem. The drive line has been fantastic. The body is really, it's really high quality. I guess for a Jeep, for a pickup truck, it's kind of at the upper echelon of what I've seen out there on the road. You know, so I'm pretty happy with the way that they designed it and the quality they put into it. And, you know, overall, I just don't really have a lot of complaints. The list of things I don't like about this truck is really small. I mean, the accessory integration is amazing with this truck. I took off the factory bumper, put on a steel winch bumper and a winch in like an hour. I mean, what other truck can you do that? I mean, you could go on all day long, but there's just so many aspects and categories that you can compare this truck to against other trucks, and this one comes out on top every time. So again, it's just an initial review. I know I'm gonna have to put a lot more miles on it before we can do anything that we remotely call a long-term review. But you'd be surprised these days how many vehicles end up having issues in the first year of ownership. So it does say a lot that this truck has been flawless, hasn't been to the dealership for a single issue, you know, and I use it as a truck too. I don't know if I got to cover everything I wanted to cover in this video, but the main idea, guys, is that if you're wondering, is this truck worth it? I think the answer is yes. It's been a fantastic truck, and honestly, out of all the trucks I've had, I've probably had a dozen or more pickup trucks, full size and mid-size, diesel and gas. This one is probably my favorite truck I've ever had. I mean, it's just because of the fun factor combined with the ability to do the work. Like I said, in the summertime, you can throw the top back or take the top off, take the doors off. You can go cruise, you can go camping, have fun. You can hit the trails if you want to, and you can still do truck stuff with it. So it's just a total package. It's almost like a Swiss Army knife kind of, and there's not really anything you can compare this to. It's the only mid-size truck that has a coil spring rear suspension. It rides really nice. It's got heavy duty axles. You should see the crash test video that they posted a week or two ago where they ran one of these trucks directly head on into a concrete wall. I mean, this thing is, you can tell it's built like a tank. I mean, it's almost overbuilt. So it's just, there's nothing else like it out there. And even though the price is really high on them, you could almost argue that it's worth it.